Hello and welcome to the latest and greatest edition of Better Together Arizona. I'm Angela Hughey. I'm the co-founder and president of One Community and One Community Foundation. Super excited today to have our friends from Gateway Commercial Bank with us. We love Gateway and I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Super excited to have our friends from Gateway Bank here with us today. And Scott, give us a little introduction about yourself and what you do for Gateway.
Yeah, so I'm the market president at Gateway Bank. And, to be honest, what I do there is a little bit of everything. Sometimes that means taking out the trash, hauling in water bottles, et cetera. But primarily I focus on commercial lending. That's kind of our bread and butter. And so I do that, but I help out a little bit with some of the other aspects. And mostly I just kind of consider myself a cheerleader. So we have an amazing staff with a lot of talents and abilities. I'm not one of them, but boy, I can cheer you on. I can recognize when you're doing a great job, and I'm happy to take all the credit that the staff deserves.
So what I hear about Gateway, which does not really surprise me, is you have a great team spirit,
Yep.
high morale, and you're all pitching in, right? If you're taking out the trash.
Yeah, I will tell you, it's a really unique culture there. I don't know of another group of individuals that are happy to give their all, way above and beyond like punching the clock, who truly care. And so I think the customers see that, but I know the staff sees that. And I can speak personally. I left for a period of time. And I came back, and it was really neat to me. I didn't notice the difference, but my wife did. After the first week, she said, "It's great to have my husband back."
Yeah.
So I think that atmosphere, that love for what you do, and that team feeling carries over into our personal lives. And clearly that was noticeable to my wife.
Well, you know what I always say, happy wife, happy life.
Yes, indeed. Indeed.
And Josh, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Josh Flake, and I'm the Chief Credit Officer over at Gateway Bank. And so, yes, we have our titles, but kind of to echo what Scott said, the great thing about our team is everyone pitches in on every level. And so, and again, to his point, I don't know another organization where the CEO will come out and help with anything that's going on. And we have that in James Christensen, our CEO, and that has trickled down from him to every member of the team, where we truly, work together on everything that we do.
Well, and I love James, and I've had the just absolute pleasure of knowing him for several years, and we should have him on the show to really just talk about authentic leadership, because, it's so fantastic to hear two top leaders at Gateway just really talking about the love that you have for the business that you work for your team, and the fact that you're like all in, and it's very clear that the guiding principles of Gateway really are around family and service, and just the community that you serve, right? And so let's start talking about the community that you serve, because we're in some pretty choppy times here financially in our nation, right? For months now, we've been reading about, consumer confidence at all-time lows, right? Like that we haven't seen since like the 90s. You keep having jobs reports that are coming out that are concerning. We've got more people looking for a job than there are jobs available in the United States right now. So that's really concerning. And so I want to look to the two of you for some like really good advice. And at first I want to talk about like from a consumer aspect, right? Like what's the good type of advice that you need to give consumers right now when things are really uncertain and we don't have a lot of confidence in, really where our economy is and where it's going right now. So what matters from a consumer standpoint?
Yeah, I think, we can talk about some different formulas and strategies to put yourself personally in a position to try and weather the storm. The reality is that decision probably needed to be made a while ago, right? And so what do you do if you find yourself in this position where you say, you know what, maybe I didn't take the steps that I should have to prepare myself. And so I would just say this, when you have people close to you that find themselves in that position, or maybe you yourself get into that position, what's hardest for me is to see how people like take their self-worth and tie it to their financial success.
Yeah.
And whether that's your success in your job or your ability to continue to buy the things you want and live the lifestyle. And so the first thing that I would say is be okay with the fact that maybe times are going to get tough. People are resilient. That's what makes us better. And I can speak personally, having gone through a tough time financially. I learned a few things there that have put me in position to do better the next time around. So what I would say is, I understand the feelings, but don't wallow in that, because that is only going to make it harder for you to climb out. I have a saying in our house. I tell our kids, we don't lose, we learn. So if you're in that position where unfortunately it's not your fault, you lost your job and you're going through a tough time, just learn from it and move on. Be resilient, be resourceful, leverage the connections you have, get back on top. And then, let's figure out what we can do next time to maybe avoid having so much leverage and some of the things that we buy. Be a little bit more diligent about putting money aside in savings and things of that
be strategic,
nature.
right?
Yeah.
So I'm just absolutely grateful, Scott, just for your honesty, right?
Yeah.
You're like, so the first thing I'm going to tell you is, if you're just thinking about this now, you're a little late, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to imagine that almost every person in this great nation has had financial struggles. I know we certainly have in our family over the years, and it taught us things, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we are constantly, like, we know what our credit score is. Like, I don't like to carry debt on our credit cards, like longer than like 2 months, because that's our hard-earned money, right?
Yeah.
And so, no disrespect, Visa and MasterCard, American Express, I don't want to give you any more than I need to, right?
Yeah.
And, we plan. My wife and I were just having this conversation about, like, there's 3 big things that we'd like to do in our home, and saying, okay, like, let's be realistic, right? Like, this has been a difficult year. We expect some more bumpiness going into next year. Our financial circumstances are very sound, but we need to plan, right? And so we're like, okay, let's talk about the 3 things that we think we'd like to do. And then my question is, okay, so, like, how do you prioritize?
Yeah.
And we agreed on the priority, and I'm like, okay, well, then that's what we're going to work towards, right? And decided, because things are kind of choppy out there, that the money had to be in the savings account, not it was, it's okay if it goes on the credit card, we'll pay it off in 2 months. So I mean, we're certainly making those types of decisions, and have been and been very mindful, and I think it's helpful.
Well, and I love that you're talking about financial planning, because I think, like we were talking about, it can feel like if you haven't started yet, it's too late. And so I think people will kind of bury their head in the sand.
Yeah.
And, I remember the first few years my wife and I got married, we were not good with our finances. This is before I got into banking. And when we started,
you were bad with your finances, and you're a banker?
Yeah.
Oh, my
so
goodness gracious.
Yeah. No, but my wife, when we started, I remember she was embarrassed about our financial position, to the point where she didn't even really want to talk about it. And so luckily we were able to get over that, and continually look at our finances, because that's really my main point of advice, is you need to continually look at where you're at and set goals like you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because I found once we started doing that, we realized how much we were spending on stupid stuff that we didn't need to be spending on, right?
We probably do need to take a look at our streaming bill. I'm like, do you realize we have every streaming channel?
That's us too.
And how often do we actually watch Netflix is my question. Yeah.
But like you say, there are potentially some troubling times ahead. Arizona as a state, in March of this year, we were number 6 for new jobs. Right now we're sitting at number 47.
Oh,
so
my
just,
gosh.
6 months later, we've slid downhill pretty drastically. And so that can be scary when you look at that for people. But again, that's not a reason to bury your head in the sand. You need to make sure that you're staying aware of what's happening, and also looking at your situation so that you can plan for any eventuality.
Well, yeah, and like going back to community connection, I feel like there's this pride that comes with, like, being able to afford the things that, whatever those things are, right?
Yeah.
Like, for just people. And I think it can be difficult for us sometimes to like say like you can still have pride in who you are and don't take this personally just because you're going through difficult financial times, but maybe not having a $7 coffee every day, right? Like make it more of we're going to do it kind of like a once a week thing, or I think finding like creative ways so you don't feel like you're I think the way it works mentally is people feel like they're missing out on something, and so I love that you're just saying like don't take this personally, like this is part of life, we all go through things.
Well, yeah, and I mean it's something that impacts everyone. One of the things that we see as bankers when we're looking at people's personal tax returns and financial statements is the more income you make, the more you spend. So it's not like if I get to X number of income, I'm going to be fine, because oftentimes your expenses are going to go up as well. And so
what you're telling me is nobody ever learns.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, we're not learning how to have good. So let's talk about that. How much should you be spending? Like if you're from your net, how much should you be saving, right? Like in that emergency fund, or just in that, like it is never too late. Even if you start small, it'll like really add up. Is there like a particular ratio that folks should be looking at?
I don't think there's a magic ratio, and this may not be a popular opinion, because I do know there are some people that are very well known for their financial advice that would completely discourage all debt. And what I would say is, while that's great for some of us, to me, what's infinitely more important is the relationship that I have. So if you find yourself in a relationship with a significant other, to me, the most important thing is you are having those discussions and you do have a plan. So I would never want to force the plan that works for me and my wife on you and your wife, or Josh and his wife, because the reality is, like, at the end of the day, we all want to make it to the finish line. But does it really matter if you have $6 more in the account?
Well, we're going to run different paths, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I totally
so
agree
you got to find something that works. But to me, the formula isn't about what percentage, but more about having those conversations, having a strategy, and executing the strategy
consistently.
That's all that. To me, it's all about habits and having a plan. But if you're literally making no plans, like, unfortunately, life is gonna throw you a curveball.
Yeah,
it's just gonna happen.
Yeah,
and so there's so much more peace that comes personally from having a plan, even if it's not the exact perfect strategy to get there. You got a strategy, and I would say that's 90% of the battle.
Yeah, well, I agree with you, and so thank you, like, for this just really thoughtful and honest conversation. So I want to switch to the business side, right? Because obviously, One Community is a business. Full Swing Studios, where we're at, is a business. You should do your videos at Full Swing. We love Full Swing. I remember when COVID happened, and we had a emergency fund for One Community that was really small, and COVID was really, really difficult, right? And I'm absolutely so grateful that we made it through it. And we were in I think a really fortunate position because we'd been around for a long time. Local First Arizona had a number of grants, and we were able to get a grant. And I know that you are huge fans of Local First, and as are we. And banking local has always been a big thing to Local First. And so when we were coming into 2025, the thing that gave me, just that allowed me to like sleep well at night, or better, and not be so financially stressed, is that we've been very diligent, not just personally, but professionally, in building up basically what that emergency fund is, or those additional coffers are, in cases of things happening that we have no control over, right? Yeah. Because it is part of life, to your point, right? And so, and we tapped our emergency funds, in March of this year. Yeah. And I hated to do it, and wow, was I glad we had the funds, right?
It's true.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point, because and unfortunately, that's one of the lessons that a lot of people have to learn the hard way. But it's easy when everything's going good to think that that's going to last forever.
Right.
And that's not the case. Every business, every individual goes through rough times. And so building up that reserve is crucially important. Whether your goal is, to save, or, to spend on the personal side, even, whether your goal is to travel a lot or to buy a house, that's going to, make your plan different, but you still need to have some emergency reserve for when those things come up.
So and again, it's not perfect, but I keep seeing this 3-month thing, right? Like, so from a consumer standpoint, 3 months in reserves is a place to, feel like, okay, we've got some backup. Is it the same for businesses? Are you trying to get to that 3 months place?
This is a fun question for me. It's a fun math equation, and
Okay.
I love solving it. And I would say to you, on the consumer end, if you're W-2 wage earners and pretty secure jobs, that 3 month is a great one to go off. If you're more performance-based pay or you're self-employed, it might be bigger. But on the business end, it's so fun to solve what that number looks like. Every business is going to be different.
Okay.
Depending on the type of business that you operate. If you're a service-based business that provides a service and immediately receives payment for that service, your operating cycle, we call it, is very, very short. The amount of funds you need to keep is much lower.
It's smaller
Okay?
because you're turning so quickly.
Yes.
Got it?
And so if you're a manufacturer who's buying raw goods, converting them into a product and selling it and then offering terms to your consumers,
It's a much longer
your
process.
operating cycle is big.
Plus
if
90
you're a
days.
contractor and you have to dole out buckets of cash to buy product, to build something, and then wait for the project to get done to receive your money, that might be an 18-month to 2-year operating
my
cycle.
gosh.
You need a war chest of cash, okay?
Okay.
And so it's fun for me. This is where the shameless plug for Gateway, okay?
Yeah.
This is where having a good financial advisor or banker is critical. They will carve out the time to sit with you, look at your business, figure out your operating cycle, help you know what that number is, and then you have a target to work towards. And that's not only for your peace of mind. It helps your peace of mind, but it's very strategic in how you make your decisions. Is it time to add a new employee? Should we consider an acquisition? Do we want to buy a building? Can we afford this piece of equipment? All of those decisions can't be made unless you understand your operating cycle, your working capital need, and then how you're going to fund all that. And so that's what makes, like, banking in general sounds like probably the most boring job in the world, and it might be.
Well, there is
but
accounting, but
Yeah.
but
no
that's-
disrespect to accountants. I
that's
love
the fun
accountants.
part for me, is getting this business in, learning what makes it go, showing them the math, and
Yeah.
then watching them like take that information and thrive. Like, that's really fun.
Well, and the two things I'll add on top of the operating cycle that I think are important are, one, seasonality, especially here in Arizona.
yeah.
There are so many businesses that in the summer, they're dead, right?
Right, and with this new administration and the calamity that was the first quarter, right? And I've had this conversation with our team at One Community and our team at Full Swing, right? And that is the first thing that goes is marketing. And so we're both like in that marketing space from this is the corporate investment. And I'm like, so by the way, our budgets just went right out the door,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So again, understanding your business, making sure that you do understand what that seasonality looks like so that you do have enough to cover those slow months is important. And then second, I would say understanding who your customers are, right? Because if you sell a product that's inexpensive and necessary, it's not as big of a risk. But if you have a very small customer base, maybe, we were just looking at a company down in Tucson that has one main customer. So the risk is a lot greater that if something happens to that, you're going to be in a cash flow crunch. And so to mitigate that risk, you do need to have more savings than a business that has a more diversified client base.
Yes, and I think to your point, you had great financial uncertainty in the first quarter, and then which is when a lot of businesses, in particular, like businesses that are like restaurants and in the hospitality industry, they rely on the seasonal, like the high season, to make sure that they've got enough eggs in their basket to make it through the summer. And so I think the things that's been really concerning is we didn't have the high season, and then you went into summer and you had a really difficult summer too. So I just feel like a lot of small businesses in particular are trying to really work their way through it, but are really digging out of a hole that we're in a disadvantage, right? And then again, you go back to these job numbers, you go back to consumer confidence, and it seems to me like the next 6 months look like a roller coaster.
Yeah. There's no question. I feel the same way. There's going to be a roller coaster, and while that's discouraging, and we're going to feel some effects, and probably have people close to us that might get hurt. If you're a good operator and you've put yourself in a good position, it's actually during these times that you stand to profit greatly. There might be talent out there that normally wouldn't be available,
right,
that'll be available. there might be clients that you can pick off because the person that used to service that account is struggling. And so, you know,
So you're saying it's hunting season.
I don't want to
no,
say.
but I always say we're hunters, and I'm like,
yeah.
it's time to like. So what I'm
sounds
hearing
a
is
little
like,
heartless.
no,
but I would
like lean in.
But yeah, there's a reality that like, if you play this right, this is really what separates a good operator from a bad. When times are good, you can really suck at your job and just generate enough sales to do okay.
But now you have to.
But if you're really good at your job, when it gets leaner like this, you're like, let's go. Let's see what we're made of. We're going to get lean. We're going to kick butt. We're going to, you know, circle the wagons. And this might be tough for a year or two, but when we come out on the back end,
we're going to come out of it better. Yeah.
Well,
go.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think you're right. I think we're in for a bit of a bumpy 2026. And I think it's times like that where organizations like Gateway Bank and One Community are so important because, you know, my grandpa always used to say, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah.
And so having a network of people and a true community that you can lean on, whether you lose your job or whether it's a downtime for your business and you need to network a little bit more, it's so important to have an organization like that you can connect with and that can support you during those times.
Well, and what I love about what Gateway is doing and has just authentically done since I first met James is that you are intentional and you are absolutely invested in the communities that you're serving, right? And so, you know, it's not, I always say you find out who your friends are when you're really vulnerable. And I think a lot of individuals and families are going to be vulnerable financially. And I think a lot of businesses are going to be vulnerable, you know, because of what we kind of see as the next, you know, 6 to 9 months or 12 months. And so to have just an authentic relationship with a bank, right, that can, I think, help folks kind of work their way through this is going to be incredibly important. And Josh, back to what you were both kind of saying earlier. When we founded One Community in 2008, so the story about One Community is we definitely were born at adverse times. We, Sherry, my wife, and I emptied out our 401k, ran over to California, got married. First day of our honeymoon, we launched the first One Community website. And then like the second day, like the massive crash of like the end of 2008 happened. And, you know, I'm like, oh my gosh, we just launched this like little LGBTQ based like org where, you know, and Cher had left her job because we were starting One Community. And my intent was to join her once we got One Community to the place that you know, we felt like it was we had stability, right? So we had a plan in place, and obviously when the market just absolutely crashes, those plans go out the window. And so, you know, the company I worked for immediately laid off people. I was one of those people, and so we like to say we learned how to make lemonade. So I'm like, okay, the savings is gone. It's all like we're ride or die, baby, on One Community, and our whole thing was like, there is an opportunity in the difficulty. And what we saw, to your point, Scott, was hunting season. And by that, I mean, no business had too much business. Everyone was really worried. And so it created an opening for us to have really thoughtful, authentic conversations with businesses and organizations of all shapes and sizes about who LGBTQ plus people are as consumers and who we are as professionals within your ranks. And, you know, the reality is, again, no one had too much business because there was such a downturn. And guess what? We buy healthcare. We purchase cars. And so we were able to just like thoughtfully educate people on what we look like from a consumer standpoint, demographically and psychographically. And 2008 was a different time. But psychographically, and there wasn't a great deal of just research out there on like how LGBTQ people like prioritize things when it came to purchasing. But we found a piece, and what it really said is it wasn't about location. We would drive further. We wanted to be treated with dignity and respect. And we didn't have a lot of the good policy in place that we do now. And certainly we need more policy in place. But what mattered is that when we walked through the door, you were going to treat us like the human beings that we are and with dignity. And so, I mean, that's just core to who Gateway has always been. And, from the moment that, I was introduced to James, I think it was Kimber that introduced the two of us most likely at a fantastic Local First event. That's always been, really key. And then I was just having this conversation the other day with someone saying, like, even though there's a part of your business that's transactional, this can't be about transactional business right now. This really needs to be about caring about who your customers are, who are small businesses and consumers to a certain extent. But, majority of your customer base is the business community, and walking alongside of them and helping them create a strategy and a path to walk through these like difficult times, right?
Yeah.
And so it impresses me about just the way Gateway thinks and shows up in the community. And I think it's, obviously one of the reasons we've been, really fortunate to have such a long-standing partnership. So we come into this year, the first thing that happens is a number of executive orders that are really, really anti-trans, anti-DEI. There's a lot of executive orders. I can't remember them. Unapologetically.
Like not even veiled of like.
Right. And my point to our team is, and I've said this already, but it's worth repeating. You find out who your friends are when you're vulnerable. And it is very clear that the LGBTQ plus community is really vulnerable right now. And going back to James for a second, I got a random email, I think from James, probably in February, saying, "Hey, Gateway has supported Spotlight for many years, which is our biggest fundraiser. Send us over what the opportunities are." And you doubled your support of one community this year, and that really spoke volumes to me, because I'm like, okay, we unsolicited. Right? The transactional piece of this starts from Gateway saying, we care about one community. It's very clear we're in some really heady times right now. Let's reach out to our friends and our partners organizationally and see how we can be helpful. And again, you doubled your investment. Yeah. That's just says it all in my mind's eye. So,
I don't want to turn this into a James Christensen podcast.
But I'm going to cry right now. Right?
And I might, but I would say this. I think it's good for people to hear a little more about him and behind the scenes, some of the decisions he makes, because I think by watching others do it, hopefully it will empower more. So the cool thing about James is, as a person, he's not someone that I would consider to be physically imposing. And so that's a true sign of bravery to me, that the man is such a fierce defender of people, especially people that have been mistreated. And there are a number of examples of that. I've known him for 20 years now. And there's a lot that he does that people don't see, where he steps up. But
that's true
personal
leadership,
risk.
Right? I mean, true leadership isn't, I'm doing this because I want to, it's about my brand and I want to be seen and I want someone to give me credit for this. Yeah. They always say, you know how someone really feels about when they, based on what they say when you're not in the room, right?
Yeah. He won't bow.
Yeah.
He won't bow. He will always do what he thinks is right. And so I think people would be well served to follow that example of bravery and just saying, look, I believe this in my core. I realize it may ruffle some feathers. There could be some people that come after me for it. And he just isn't afraid.
Yeah, well, our philosophy at One Community has been similar, right? My belief in our whole team, the way we look at things is we're going to lead by doing what's right, right? There is a transactional part to every organization and every business. But our belief has always been if we lead by doing what's right, then the transactional piece will take care of itself, because you want to align with organizations that share your values, right? Whether it's a for-profit or not-for-profit, or where you're choosing to have your personal or and business, banking needs met, right? And that was our philosophy when we launched the Unity Pledge, right? So we launched the pledge in 2013, because we just think it's the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. We see it as an opportunity to have this really thoughtful conversation with people about including everyone in Arizona's awesome move forward, including LGBTQ plus people, right? And that it's not, none of this is an either or. This is about really choosing to create inclusive workplaces, because when you do, you have healthier workplaces. Your wife got her husband back when you came back to Gateway, because you are a part of an organization that truly cares about its team members, cares about how you feel and your thoughts and ideas, and has created a really sustainable opportunity and healthy opportunity for Gateway, because you start with caring about people, right? And you're like, and yes, we'll get to what our products and services are as well, but how are you, and how can we be helpful to you? So Gateway signed the pledge like super quick, right? Why was that like important?
I think, as a community bank, first off,
community.
Arizona is incredibly important to us. This is, where our market is. But on a deeper level, as humans, Arizona is home to all of us, right? And one of the things I love about Arizona is that it is incredibly diverse, because we've had people moving from all over the country to be here. So it's great that we're so diverse. But I think as a step further, we need to make sure that everyone feels included and worthy and loved. And that's really at the root of us at Gateway Bank, because we feel like every single person, regardless of ethnicity or race or sexual orientation, should have equal access to a great banking relationship and to capital for their business. And so that's at our core. And so I think we realize that's at one community's core as well. And so we align a lot on those fronts. And again, just want to make sure that everyone is equal and treated fairly.
I want to add to that. Why should any of that even sound like a novel idea?
Right.
Why? I don't get it. And so it was easy for us to sign the pledge because that's who we are. And I'll tell you this, I don't care how good a banker you are. If that culture doesn't work for you, you're not getting hired.
Yeah, then you're not right for us.
It does, and James does not care. And I will tell you this, I felt that way before, but I feel that way infinitely more now because I've seen it. I've seen it in action. And that's the culture that will continue. As long as the three of us are there, that'll continue.
Right. And I think these companies that are like pulling back from like their inclusive policies and whatever, like, I think it's really reactionary. And they will not be well served in the end, right? I think, you have to, the businesses and organizations, to your point, even on like an economic downturn, that are going to do the best and have the best outcomes are the ones that walk through this period, whether it's this anti-inclusionary rhetoric that's coming from, our federal administration, or whether it's walking through the difficult financial circumstances that may be caused by this administration, and some of the decisions that they're making.
Yeah. Well, I think, whether you look at the country as a whole, just Arizona, or even each individual business, if it's not a great place for everyone, it's not a great place for anyone. And so we take that to heart at Gateway, and we make sure that every single person, and you touched on it earlier, James has really taught authenticity, and that trickles down, and not just to the team, but it allows each of us to be our authentic selves.
It's present in the community.
Right.
It's present about how in the way that Gateway shows up.
Yeah, it definitely goes past the walls of the bank, and it's what we extend to our customers and the community as a whole. And so I think that goes a long way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What's your dream for Arizona? Like what's the dream? We get through this.
I don't know. It's hard because I do feel we've made great progress. And sometimes it's discouraging to feel like, and we still got a long ways to go.
Yeah, we do.
And so I would love to be an optimist, and we can talk about everyone being able to feel that way, but it's going to take a lot of hard work. So my thought is, can't we just start with being kind and civil?
Yeah.
Like, that seems so easy. Do you not have a mother? Like, that's like the basic fundamental thing my mom taught me. I assume everyone else's mom taught them that, but we've gotten so far away from that our opinions and our differences have somehow made us feel like it's okay to be awful and nasty to each other.
Yeah.
So it sounds really dumb, but I just have a dream that someday we can all treat each other kind and be civil, and it's okay if we're going to disagree. I would bet you a box of donuts that
are they going to be really good donuts?
Warm.
Warm donut.
yeah.
Ooh, freshly baked
Yeah,
donuts.
yeah.
All right.
Okay,
what's the bet?
If you
What's
sat
the bet?
down with most people and really had an honest conversation, you'd find out we have a lot more in common than differences.
I totally agree with you. I just did a presentation for the city of Phoenix yesterday, actually.
Yeah.
And it was all about civil discourse and how do you find ways to be respectful and engage with folks that maybe you know that have had different lived experiences and which absolutely frame how you feel about things and how you find like the things that we can agree on. And my whole thing is like you have to be respectful. And one of my favorite sayings, which just is just the way that we operate from a one community standpoint, is like we don't see opposition, we see opportunity, right? So, I used to take a lot of slack because my whole thing was I'm like, I will meet with anyone. And people are like, you shouldn't be meeting with XYZ because they're horrible and they don't like us and whatever.
They're a bad person.
Oh, they're horrible and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I will have a cup of coffee with anyone. And that has served us really well in not limiting what the outcome can be, but also just saying, okay, like let's start from a place of common decency and respect. And listening, like really actively listening to what people's concerns or fears are, or how they have framed whatever it is that we are disagreeing on. And when you do that, I totally agree with you. You can find things that you agree on. And I am with you. I think we agree on a lot more than is out there, right? Than is in social media or, on the television, because there's an old saying, if it bleeds it leads, right? And it's pretty bloody in America right now, and I think it's going to be, we're going into a midterm election next year. I think there's going to be a lot of carnage, but the thing that we have to remember is like we are all in this together, and the question we all have to ask ourselves is, who do we want to be? Who do we want to be as Arizonans? How do we want to show up as Americans? And to your point, how can we do better?
Yeah.
And if there's like warm donuts in the mix, I have a feeling that the majority of Americans and the majority of Arizonans will be with you.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I agree. And to your point, I think it's totally okay to disagree, but it's not okay to disrespect. And I think any level of discrimination stems from misinformation. And so I think to get to the Arizona that we're all talking about here, that we all want, there needs to be more open conversations like this, right? Because I haven't walked in your shoes. I haven't walked in Scott's shoes. We all have very different life experiences. And as we share those, and part of that is everyone involved needs to be open, right? So being open to the conversation and truly trying to understand the other person's point of view helps us, make those connections that we have. And I think will help us move forward. But I think to get there, we need more organizations and more people like you that are.
And the both of you, and just like, I think the point is we're all we really, we call the show Better Together Arizona for a reason, right? Because like if we're all doing our part, we can get there. And I'm so grateful for this conversation today. And I'm so grateful to James and all three of your leadership and the way Gateway shows up and shows out very consistently. And and I'm looking forward to the donuts.
Yeah, let's have them.
All
Let's
right.
do it.
Thank you both.
Yeah, thank you.